Alright, everybody, give a second to adjust the camera. Good.
Looks like I adjusted it on mine.
It always looks different on the picture on the phone than it does.
Okay, I did
There we
it.
go.
That's how?
Yep.
Okay.
Alright, we're doing this on her phone, so trying to get this adjusted and looking halfway decent. So we'll give everybody a chance to filter in here a little bit. We got a bunch to talk about, and I wanted to do a live stream for this. For those of you who've been with me for a while, you know I used to do preview videos a long time ago, and I think this is a little bit more interesting instead of just putting up video. This way, if anybody has any questions in the chat, we can talk about it. And then people watching this after the fact can't join us live, and we can kind of go through all these questions, and maybe the people in the chat have questions that you want answered, and it brings up something we can talk about and whatever else. So we'll give the YouTubes a minute to send all the notifications out and stuff, and we'll get to it here. So we've got a few more than just what I got in the thumbnail. So cool. So the dates for stuff, we're just going to go ahead and get started here, and everybody can catch up with us. The Dark Code and Ufo Alert are launching on July 2nd. Also, the Mix Off-Whites, new Spare Ball, Tropical Surge Purple, Tropical Surge Golden Black, and of course we have the Burner Solid and Burner Pearl from 900 Global. Those are all on July 2nd, the street date for those. The new Hustle Camo and Wine that just got announced at Bowl Expo, those are coming out July 23rd. So those will all be in that July kind of window, but the Hustles are going to come a little bit later. Now once we move into August, about a month past that, August 20th, we get the Zen Master and the RSTX2. And then in September 17th, the Hype Pearl, Hype Hybrid, trend to Electrify Solid that did get pushed back. Originally, I think it was late July for the release date for that, and that got pushed back. And the Honey Badger Yellow Poly. Now, just to explain why we have a Yellow Poly already, we thought it was going to be overseas. Angel saw it, Angel really wanted it, and so we went ahead and nabbed one. We had an opportunity to get one, so that's why we already have one of those. So. Let me know about the volume if you have any volume issues. We did get a set of new mics that work when I'm streaming on my webcam, but we haven't done them with the phone yet, so didn't get a chance to set those up. Yeah, going ahead, I'll try to talk loud, but going ahead and yeah, just zoom back out, move it closer.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll try to get the audio worked out. I'm gonna move the phone a little bit closer.
Zoomed in more?
No, that's probably fine. Just go ahead and turn the fan off. All right, yeah, we just had to get the phone close enough, and it's a little stuffy here in the garage, so we turn the fans on for a minute. So, yeah, now that the fan's off, we should be fine. We'll get these audio mics set up. Like I said, when I'm doing it on the webcam, we've got those new lapel mics that we used on Sunday for the live stream. We'll be using them again. Sunday, tomorrow, if tomorrow is Sunday. So, we haven't gotten them figured out with the phone yet, so I will go through those again. The release dates for all these new ones, there are a bunch of them. So there are 7 coming out July 2nd, 2 more July 23rd, 2 more August 20th, and 6 more, 5 more on September 17th. So the ones that are coming out here about a week from now, sitting right here. Dark Code UFO Alert. We also have the Mix Off-White, which is a new spare ball. We've seen those. Those look pretty cool. The Tropical Surge Purple, Tropical Surge Gold and Black. Then we have the Burner Solid and Burner Pearl from 900 Global. July 23rd, we got the Hustle Camo and the Hustle Wine that just got announced at Expo. We got the Zen Master and RSTX2 coming out in August 20th. Then September 17th, we have the Hype Pearl, the Hype Hybrid, the Trend 2, the Electrify Solid, which got pushed back. Originally, I think it was a July 23rd or mid-July date, but that got pushed back too. And the Honey Badger Yellow Poly. And again, the explanation on that is that we thought it was going to be overseas. Angel saw it had to have one, so we went ahead and nabbed one. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to do my best weather guy impression, and we're going to talk about the details. Obviously, I'm not going to know exactly what the balls do until I get them, but we can talk about the cover stocks, we can talk about the chords, we can talk about the numbers, we can at least get you in the ballpark, because with all this stuff coming out, nobody's going to be able to afford to buy all this stuff. So I understand that you're probably going to want to be picky. I'm doing this as a live stream so that if anybody has any questions, for those of you that are watching after the fact, if you have any questions, maybe they get answered during the live stream. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the Dark Code and UFO Alert first, since we have had those for about a month now. The release date got pushed back. It was originally June 17th, June 18th, something like that, the middle of June. It got pushed back because they had a bunch more pre-orders than they were expecting. Plus, they got all this new stuff to prep. Plus, so they were just crazy backed up at HQ. So, trying to catch up for doing that. So, we've had the Dark Code and UFO Alert for a little while. When I posted the videos, I thought that I was going to be using the UFO Alert more than the Dark Code, because the Dark Code is strong. It's really strong. It gets decent length. It gets decent pop down lane, but it's really strong. So I just didn't think I was going to be able to use it as much. The UFO Alert is kind of right in the middle. It's kind of your astrophysics, Halo Pearl, kind of in the middle. It's a medium strength-ish cover. UC2 is another one to kind of compare it to. So it's got a strong asymmetric core, but it doesn't have a super strong cover on it. So it's kind of your, strong flippy ball that you can still use on a house shot. The Dark Code is still plenty usable on a house shot. It's just if you are more rev dominant, or if you have slower speed, it gets down the lane okay, but it still hooks a bunch, and it still really shapes pretty decent on the back end. So that's something that's going to need. It's going to need a softer hand or higher speed, more oil, something like that. These two work really well off each other. The Dark Code, normally I start off with it in League. I've been using it in League the last several weeks. And then if the track dries up at all, which I'm a lefty, so that didn't really happen. Or if I want to ball down, or if it starts getting a little too sharp or a little too strong or something, I can go right down into the UFO Alert. For those of you that watched the PBA Tour Finals today, I think Frankie threw the Dark Code for like one shot on a fill ball. Prather actually used it the last 2 games on that second pattern. He used the UFO Alert for a couple games. So you can go back and take a look at that and see how that looks. So the numbers, we're going to talk about the cover stock and the numbers on the Dark Code. The cover stock is REX, or Reactor Extreme. So what they did is they paired R2S Pearl with NEX Pearl. So R2S Pearl is on a bunch of stuff like the Astrophysics, the IQ Emerald, High Road Pearl. It's been on a bunch of stuff for a long time, because it's just kind of the perfect strength, control, shape balance for most people on regular league shots. And most people that buy bowling balls are league bowlers that all they see is house shots, and so this just kind of fits perfectly for them. Now, a couple games in on tougher patterns, Belmo has thrown High Road and High Road Pearl a whole bunch. couple years ago. The High Road Pearl still sees plenty of action. Westmont used the IQ Gold and the IQ Emerald quite a bit. So this is a cover stock that's in use quite a bit on several different cores for league bowlers, for tournament bowlers, for pro bowlers. It's just a really great cover. So they took that and they mixed it with R2, or they took that and they mixed it with NEX Pearl, which is on the Axiom Pearl. NEX is an evolution of NRG, and so it's stronger but somehow flippier. NRG is known for being pretty strong, rolly, smooth, controllable, and that's not really what you think when you think Pearl Ball most of the time. But NEX Pearl still gets more dig. That it's a stronger cover stock than NRG, plus it actually increases the entry angle too. So those of you that have an Axiom Proton Physics, you know it hooks a bunch, but it also shapes a bunch for being a solid ball. And the Axiom Pearl is kind of in Zen-ish territory. It's got decent length, it's got decent control, it's got decent shape. It's just a very versatile, all around pretty controllable. It's very balanced. It's very balanced. So they took those two covers and they mixed them together. Now, Storm has a chart that ranks their cover stock strengths. I think that the way that it feels to me is that the dark coat is very heavy on the NEX balance. I don't think it's a 50-50 mix. I think it's something more like 80-20, 90-10 NEX over R2S Pearl, because REX is now the third strongest cover stock on their chart under NEX, which is on top, Traction X7, which is on Parallax Effect and Parallax. REX is right underneath it. All the way down, towards the bottom of the list now, we have R2S. So if it was a 50-50 mix, it'd be kind of more right in the middle. But with it being their third strongest cover stock now, that tells me that it's got a lot more of NEX in it than it does of R2S. So, quite strong ball, but it's like a boomier, or not necessarily a boomier Zen. It's just the Zen type idea. If you have one of those, it's the Zen type idea, but a little bit more. It's got about the same back end motion, it's got about the same length, but it hooks more. About the easiest way to explain that. For those of you that had a code before, the RG is 250, 2.50. The differential is 0.058. The max allowable by USB-C is 0.06. So at 0.058, that's about as strong as they can make that, so it's going to flare a whole bunch. And the PSA strength or intermediate differential is 0.020, which is pretty strong for that too. So the core is very strong, very rolly, very continuous, and then you put a really balanced cover on it that gets decent length, decent shape, hooks a bunch, and so it's just been a house shot killer for me for the last several weeks. It keeps finding its way out of the bag, even on tougher stuff, and I've actually used it to success on tougher stuff because it has enough strength, it has enough dig to pick up and get going. But it also has the shape to not, puke or die or slow down. So it's a pretty unique, balanced, in the middle of everything type of ball. So I'm a big fan of it. I've used it quite a bit. It goes in the bag with me everywhere. So yeah, let me check the chat here real quick. Need something to replace my Jackal Ghost. I'm not sure. We've got a bunch of shiny stuff coming. I don't think the Zen Master might be kind of that idea. I don't think so. With the Jackal Ghost is a little bit cleaner and rounder and fairly sharp-ish for an ASIM. I got my Rise and Grinds buddy Jonathan throws his quite a bit. So I'm not. Let me look at what we got. I'm not sure that anything coming now, because we got the RSTX2, which is a shiny pearl, dark code UFO alert burners. No, so we don't have anything coming. Let me take a look at what we've got. The closest thing would probably be like an RSTX1. I know it's a hybrid versus a solid, but the Ghost has a decent amount. It has a little bit extra length and pop for being a solid. So I would probably put it pretty square. I think the Proton Physics is going to be too much ball. It's going to be too smooth. The Ghost is a little bit rounder and sharper than that. The Rubicon also might be, Rubicon might actually be the best bet. I think the Ghost cover's a little bit stronger, but I think the Rubicon's a little bit boomier. So if you take a look at either the Rubicon or the RSTX1, I think those are going to put you in similar territory or about where you want to be with that. .500 revs and 15, 16 miles an hour is a two-hander. It might be a little much across the board, but it's surprisingly clean up front for as strong as it is and as much as it punches. But we're talking like 30 feet. Once it starts slowing down, once it hits friction, once it starts kind of winding up, it goes. So it might be a little too much. You might be looking more in UFO Alert territory, but would Dark Code be a good replacement for the Astro? Not really. I think that you're going to want to look at the RSTX2 or the UC2, which is available now. We still have a couple months to wait for the RSTX2. But the Dark Code, and that's the thing that most people see. It's a dark, wrong way, yeah. It's a dark, shiny code, and so most people just have automatically thought Code Black, Astrophysics, whatever else. This cover is a bunch stronger than that cover. Like I said, on the chart, and I'll see if I can put it somewhere. I can't put it up on here, obviously, but on the chart, REX, which is the Dark Code cover, is the third strongest cover that they have in their formulas right now. R2S is way down a whole lot further, so it's mostly NEX with a little bit of R2S in there to bring the strength down a little bit and to make it punch a little bit more. So I think the RSTX2 or the UC2 is going to be a whole lot closer to the Astro, and the UC2 is basically a little bit sharper Astro. The Astro was a little bit rounder, a little bit slower. UC2 booms a little bit more, is a little bit sharper on friction, but it's really close. Just the Rubicon Husky for the Jackal Ghost replacement. Just the regular Rubicon, not the UC2. Tamer says the Phase 3 hooks more than the Dark Code. Is this true? I don't think so. Where he bowls out at Limerick, the lanes are really weird, so sometimes he gets kind of wonky reads on stuff. The Phase 3 is strong, but it's not as strong as the Dark Code. It's close, but it's not there. Alright, moving on, we're going to talk about the UFO Alert now. This has the math is pretty simple on this one. It's stuff that we're familiar with. REX is new for people, so it's going to have to get up there and filter around. People are going to have to drill them, use them, and figure out what's going on with that. UFO Alert is the Idle Synergy cover on the UFO core, which is the ET or equalizer technology. So this has E-Trax hybrid on it, or it's the hybrid version of the UC2 cover. And what they did with this new E-Trax is it's not as strong as E-Trax 20 that was on, say, the nuclear cell or something. The nuclear cell was stronger than this, and I think it was a little bit, the nuke was also flippier than this. It was just a stronger overall ball. So I think what they did for the new just base E-Trax that they've used on the UC2 and now on the Synergy and the Alert, I think they pulled the strength back a little bit. So it's pretty responsive. It acts like an asymmetric Synergy. So I use the Idle Synergy quite a bit. UFO Alert winds up a little bit sooner. It's a little bit earlier. I think back-end strength feels pretty similar, but the UFO Alert's a little bit earlier, a little bit stronger than the Idle Synergy. Same type of motion, but again, if you watched the PBA Tour Finals earlier, Chris Prather threw this on the second pattern of the back two games of the seeding round that he was in. He threw it for the back two games on that second pattern, so you can go get a good look at that if you want to take a look at more than just video, if you want to see it kind of in real life, I guess. So cover is pretty simple. Once again, this is the ET or equalizer technology core. It's got two little cutouts. They're not voids, so there's no voids or holes in there. They're kind of cutouts, or they're blocked out of the core to kind of mimic the effect of adding a weight hole after the fact. So we've got a 252 RG, which is kind of, it's on the higher side for an ASIM, but Rotogrip's done this quite a bit. I believe the nucleus core in the cells is a little bit higher like that, and the parallaxes I think are 252, 253, something like that. So it allows the ball to get a little bit further down the lane before it revs up. Something that, and this is something really interesting that we'll talk about with the Trend 2 later, is that if you have too much strength too soon, the ball wants to use energy too soon. So it gets down, it just doesn't have enough strength to be continuous and to make a good move down lane. So they've got a real nice blend with this where it's strength, but it's usable strength. It's strength placed in, it's more balanced. It's put more in a usable place for the bowler, a little bit better place. Differential's 054, so that's fairly high. And the PSA is 016, so it's not the strongest intermediate diff. That's only a couple ticks higher than something like an Insight at 013. But the PSA or the intermediate differential is kind of the secondary. It's the asymmetry part of it. So it's kind of like I use it as kind of a minor secondary pin position is the easiest way to think about that. So instead of being, when you're talking about like a symmetric core, it's like this. It's symmetric no matter which way you turn it. Horizontally, it's symmetric. It's asymmetric from vertically from top to bottom because it's got some stuff that it does here. But from side to side that's when you get into asymmetric cores. You have both vertical and horizontal asymmetry. So when you turn it, it'd be something like this little remote from my fancy. Which color do we want here? Or do we want green for the Ufo Alert since we're talking about that right now? So it's the same top to bottom, but as soon as you tilt it a little bit, then as it rotates, it's kind of wobbling a little bit. But as you turn it, it's not the same. It's asymmetric from horizontally too. So as you have something like this turning around and agitating all over the place, it just kind of makes the ball wobble, makes it flare more, it makes it more consistent, firmer down lane than something like an asymmetric core than a symmetric core that doesn't have that extra little bit of help. So that'll about explain it for the Ufo Alert. And this is a case of I hope it doesn't get overshadowed by this thing here. Because if you have a synergy, you know how great that is. Most people, the thing with the UFO is it was so strong that I don't think that a lot of people got it, or if they did, they didn't get to throw it very often because it's something like a proton physics. It's just a really strong ball. Most of the time, you're not going to need that. Now, those of you that did get it and were able to use it, you know how round and controllable of a shape it is. The core feels very similar to the RST X1 type idea, which is also, I believe, a little bit higher on, or a little bit more kind of in a medium place on the RG. So it's round, it's continuous, it's pretty strong, and then again, if you watch with the Ufo Alert, if you watched Chris Prather a little bit earlier, watched our reviews on it, or have seen anything else about it. I really don't want people to miss out on this one. I know that this is the big one that everybody's gunning for, and so most people may not be as familiar with the core in the UFO as they are with the code, seeing as how we have the black, the codex, code red, and if you had any overseas codes, you may be a little bit less inclined to look at the alert, but I think you need to pay a little bit more attention, think about it some. And obviously, I mean, if the pros are throwing it, it's in usable territory, because most of the time the pros don't throw asymmetric stuff. About the high end of what they get to is the idle axiom, stuff like that, but they don't often get to throw asymmetric stuff because it ends up just being too much ball. And even if they are using asymmetric stuff, it's like pray through using an omega crux or something, which doesn't really read asymmetric. But so don't let this UFO get off your radar. All right, now we're going to talk about some preview stuff. We're going to get into some of the preview stuff, and again, this is going to be kind of like a weather report. I'm going to get you in the ballpark. Obviously, I can't tell you exactly what the ball does. Don't have them yet. Haven't thrown them. I'll know exactly what they'll do, but we can look at core numbers. We can look at cover stocks. So we can kind of get you in the ballpark. So if you need to, obviously we've got about a month, 2-3 months to a lot of these, but there's a bunch of them. So, decide whether you want to break your piggy bank open or not. So, the mix off white, if you're in the market for a new spare ball, looks pretty cool. It's white and shiny. It's not like crazy super super white, but off-white, it's not a dingy white either. It's something, if you remember that the quantum bias, Brunswick quantum, the quantum bias, if you shine that up when it was brand new, not after you threw it for like a game and a half, that's kind of what that looks like if you're in the market for a new spare ball. Those are pretty cool. Then we've got the Tropical Surge Purple and the Tropical Surge Gold and Black. Those are entry-level balls, but for those of you that remember like the Ride and the Joyride from several years ago that were in the hotline, it's got a similar core to that. So the Tropicals used to be pretty weak cores. They were more just entry-level balls, but they kind of updated these a little bit so that they have some performance qualities for them. Most bowlers are not going to get down to these, so they are going to be relegated to lower end, there's still more entry-level stuff than something like a Hustle, an Electrify, a Burner, whatever else. So I believe the numbers are 257 RG, 021 differential. There they are. 258, 024 in 15 pounds. So kind of a high RG, something like a high road, but very, very low differential. It's less than the Hustles or IQ Tour, Electrifies, stuff like that. So it's going to be fairly weak, fairly controllable. It's just reactor pearl, which is on the Electrifies. So more entry level balls, but really, really dirty. Like if you get super late into tournament time and the Electrifies or the Hustles are a little bit too much, a little bit too early, too strong. I really did like the Ride and the Joyride when I had those. So if you get into something where you're just on flat dirt, these will still be pretty good. Now we're going to talk about the Burner Solid and Burner Pearl. These are going to be stronger, I believe, than the Afterburners. Let me pull up the Afterburners and see what we're working with here, because they had the Afterburners, and I wanted to get one of these, the blue. Let me see if I can get my stuff to load here. Alright, so what we're doing here now. Nope, I want all balls. See all of them. Alright, so we're going to take a look at the Afterburner. The blue and the black one. Really kind of interested in that one. It was S62 hybrid. And in 15 pounds it was 255 RG 038 differential. So the 255, these are kind of MVP rocket type numbers if you remember the rocket line, but the differential is lower, so it's kind of it's a medium RG that's closer to something like a high road than it is to something like an IQ. So it's kind of right in the middle. It's not going to rev up and be super early, but it's not going to be quite as long or quite as late as something like a high road. And that medium differential that's right in there, kind of close to the 040 number, it's not going to be as slow and smooth as something like an IQ, but it's not going to be as as crazy boomy as something with, you know, up around 050 or something like that, like the high road. So not quite as early as a high road, not quite as flippy on the back end as a high road, but a little bit longer and stronger than something like a hustle. So that was the afterburner. Now let's take a look at what we're dealing with the burners. So we've got the burner solid and the burner pearl. These both also use the S62 cover, so it's got the same cover stock formula from the afterburner line. And the new core is called the Centroid, and it is 253 RG and 037 differential. So this is something that the Hustle line and the Electrifies are in kind of the 253 RG range, but they both the Electrifies and the Hustle have a little bit lower differential. It's not substantial, but it is a little bit lower. So this is gonna kind of bridge the gap between something like a Hustle IQ Tour and like a high road, because what happens for most of this stuff, we don't see a whole lot of kind of middling RGs or differentials. Most of the time we see, you know, 250 RGs or 257, 258 RGs, or we see like an 030 differential or an 050 differential. There's not a whole lot of stuff that's kind of in the middle there. So this is, you know, these should be kind of right in the middle. So if you had an afterburner, these should be a little bit earlier, but about the same look on the back end. So just basically a little bit lower RG with this new core from the afterburners versus the burners. Again, obviously won't know exactly what we've got until we drill these up and try them out. But these are coming on July 2nd, so another week, and these will be available to purchase both the burner pearl and the burner solid. Check the chat here real quick. Nope, I'm doing these, I haven't talked about the RSTX2, I'm doing these kind of in chronological order of when they get released. So the next two I'm going to talk about are the Hustle Camo and the Hustle Line. I'm going to pull the Camo up while I've got it. The Camo is interesting looking because it's camouflage. I mean, it is brown, green, and black. So I think that this is, I love when Schlemmer does stuff like this. He's like, you know what, let's see if this works. Just looking at it on the picture, I haven't seen one in person, just looking at it on the picture, it's kind of ugly. But it's camo, so it's probably going to end up being really cool in person, look really cool going down the lanes. And so I kind of like the gamble on this, or doing something a little bit different, because we haven't seen a ball that looks like this before. So this is going to be something that's different looking, that's going to be really recognizable on the lanes for, you know, for anybody that's in the military. You got to have one of these. I mean, you just got to have a Hustle Camo. So I can see a lot of jerseys getting made to match this thing. So you have your camo jersey, and then you have your camo Hustle and whatever else. So this one is VTC solid. Now what we had on the Hustle Wrap and the Hustle PBR that were just out, that's VTC 20. So I would imagine that they kind of did the same thing, and those are really strong. The Wrap and the PBR, we see the PBR on TV all the time, and so if it's strong enough to chew through those volumes, that the pros are actually using it. And we've seen, there's been a couple 900s with Hustles before, one with the Hustle Ink. Matt O'Grady won, I think, the 2018 TOC with a couple different inks. And so this, I mean, it's a low-end ball, but these are performance balls. I mean, people use these. People have shot big numbers with these. They've gotten used on tour. They've won on tour. People use them all the time at league. This is almost like a benchmark ball at league. So I'm assuming what they did here is they took VTC and they scaled it back just a little bit, like they did with E-Trax. So we were going, you know, E-Trax 19, E-Trax 20, whatever else, and then they scaled back the strength. So I think that probably what they did with the Hustle is that the Wrap and the PBR are pretty strong. So I think that they took that and they dialed it back just a little bit to kind of put it more not in an entry level place, but if you're looking for light oil or dry lane performance out of the Hustle line right now, it's not there. I mean, the PBR and the wrap are way too strong. They're almost medium to medium heavy type of stuff. They're pretty strong, and so I think that they probably will take that, scale it back a little bit, and kind of put these in a little bit more workable place. So that's what I'm assuming. Again, won't know until I have it, but that's kind of how I'm reading that. Once again, this is a 253 RG 030 differential. So if you're interested in the new Hustles and the new burners, it's similar. It's the same RG in 15 pounds, but the differential is 7 or 8 points lower. So this is going to be more like a little bit longer IQ type idea. So the IQs are a 249 RG 029 differential in 15 pounds, so they want to roll up and rev up earlier than the Hustles do. So this is going to get you down the lane just a little bit further. The Hustle Camo also comes polished. I'm pretty sure the Hustle line comes polished as well. I don't know if that's a hybrid or a pearl, but we'll go ahead and check that out now. So I don't think that you're going to see a whole lot of overlap with the burners and the Hustles. I think the burners are going to be just reading more differential means more flare, which means more traction. Basically, there's more fresh cover exposed to the lane on every rotation. The higher the differential is, the more it makes it flare, so it kind of makes it rev and roll more aggressively, and so it's going to start getting teeth a little bit earlier. It's not going to roll any earlier, it's just going to pick up and go a little bit earlier. So I think that there'll be enough of a difference between those if you're interested in both of them. There may not be enough, but if that's the kind of stuff, if you normally throw like electrifies, burners, Hustles, stuff like that anyway, there's going to be enough difference for you to go on ahead and get both of them, I think. So let's take a look at the Hustle line now and just make sure what it is. It's a pearl. So same core number, 253030. And it's VTC Pearl, so we've got VTC Pearl and VTC Solid. They're both polished. You can still break the shine off of them. You take certain, you can surface them up a little bit if you want to. So that's a look at the Hustle Camo and the Hustle line. The Hustle line I've heard looks really, really sharp in person. It's a darker color, so sometimes those are a little bit hard to read, on a stock photo on the website. So I think both the Camo and the line are going to look quite a bit better in person than they look on these stock photos. Alright, so now we're going to move to the Zen Master and the RSTX2. Those are dropping on August 20th. So the Zen Master, once again, is fairly simple math here. It's the same Meditate core. I must have read it wrong because in my review I kept calling it the Mediate core. It makes a whole lot more sense for it to be the Meditate core because it's the Zen. Idiot. So anyway, it's the Meditate symmetric core at 249 RG 051 differential. It is the largest core volumetrically that Global has ever put into a ball. That gives it that very heavy, early rolling, strong type of feel to it. When you put it down the lane, it feels like it's trying to hook now. But this has got the same cover that the S77 Response. This is the solid version of the Zen, period. So it's the same core, same cover stock formula. This is just the solid version of it. So going off of that, it should be earlier, smoother, and stronger. So how much earlier, how much smoother, how much stronger? Again, won't know until I got my hands on the ball. That's just what the numbers and everything are telling me. Plus, if you're interested in a little bit more on any of this stuff, you can go onto Storm's website. You can go on to the tech sheet. Some of these have Doppler reports. So it will give you some of the information here. And most of this one doesn't have a design intent on it yet, but it's still 2 months away. So if you're interested in the solid Zen, this is going to be the Zen Master. There's not a whole lot of there's not a whole lot of different stuff going on here. So if you like the Zen, you want a solid one, a solid standard version of it, here you go. Zen Master, August 20th. Alright, so we're going to talk about the RSTX2 now. This one should be very interesting. It looks very interesting. And this is something that is interesting, to use the same word a million times in a row, hashtag journalism. The color is called tanzanite. And if you go do a Google search, there's actually a mineral called tanzanite that is this color. It's this very, depending on which light you have it in, it's almost like that kind of opalescence, if that's even the right word, where it can be purple or blue or kind of green or teal or something like that, depending on the light that it's in, kind of like my cell phone case here. But it's kind of a purple, bluish, silverish, whatever else. So this is going to look really, really sharp in person. Now I'm going to read the literature on this. Once again, the RG, we'll talk about the numbers here first on this core. The Rotostar Tour Core, those of you that have an RSTX1 know it's really good, it's really versatile, it's really playable for a bunch of styles. We have seen it on TV a handful of times. So the RG is 253, so again, a medium differential, or kind of on the high side for an asymmetric. It's not high in general, but it's high for an asymmetric, which normally stick to like 248, 249, 250, somewhere down in that range. So this lets the core get a little bit further down the lane. It's got an 053 differential, so it is going to wind up pretty good. It is going to be fairly continuous. Again, if you have strong on top of strong on top of strong, sometimes that can make it too early, and sometimes that can make it want to give up and not be as continuous if it starts reading a little bit too early. So the RST has a really nice balance with that, with the Microtrax hybrid cover on it, which is basically Rotogrip's version of NRG. I think it's a little stronger. Don't quote me on that, but it's in the same. It's basically, like I said, Roto's version of NRG, which is strong, smooth, blendy, controllable. But with this kind of a little bit higher RG on it, make sure that the ball gets down the lane a little bit. It doesn't burn too much too early. It doesn't burn too much on the turn. So it's really continuous. It's really versatile. If you don't have one, you should. But 253 RG, 053 differential, 016 PSA strength, or split, or intermediate differential, whatever you want to say. Now this is E-Trax Plus. So this is a new, it's not a new formula, it's still, E-Trax is still the basic idea of it. So it's pretty clean, it's really responsive. I'm surprised that the UC2 is as controllable as it is, for as flippy as it is. Normally you give away something. Normally if you get something that's really flippy, it also ends up being pretty inconsistent too, because it's going to glide on oil and turn sideways on the dry. And so getting something that's really responsive like that, but strong enough to kind of get a little bit of dig through the oil without getting too much. So the UC2 has been in use for everybody on everything. The pros have thrown it a lot. So I'm going to read the literature on this off the website. So they determined that the E-Trax Pearl gave us the type of reaction we were looking for, but we wanted something a little more while still using that same chemistry. So they wanted something in the same ballpark, but adjusted just a little bit. So R&D went to work changing the ratios and other variables until we settled in on the new E-Trax Plus Pearl reactor that provides a larger footprint throughout the entire lane without reducing the responsiveness to friction downlane. So basically how this reads is that it's a stronger version of E-Trax Pearl, which is on the UC2. So it sounds like they have maintained that level of friction response, so it's still going to boom, it's just going to be a little bit stronger. Let's see. So that kind of explains the RSTX2. If you have, now this is again, going from something like the UFO, which is Microtrack's S20, I believe, down to the Ufo Alert, which is E-Track's, just E-Track's hybrid, the formulas are pretty different. So it'd be like going from NRG to, like they did with the physics and the astrophysics. So imagine the difference between the RSTX1 and RSTX2 is going to be really similar to the difference between the physics and the astrophysics. But that's kind of the realm that RSTX2 is going to live in. I don't know again how much stronger this new cover is going to be than the UC2. But you know, just like somebody doing the weather, they normally get pretty close. Sometimes they're off, and so that's why I'm trying to get you in the ballpark. We'll see what actually happens when they show up, but this should at least get you in the ballpark and see if it's something that you're even going to be interested in the first place. So Pearl RST with the relationship, again, should be pretty similar. Physics to astrophysics should be a similar relationship as the RSTX1 to the RSTX2. That releases again with the Zen Master on August 20th. If it doesn't get backed up again, we'll see. They got a bunch of stuff coming out. They're still trying to just keep up with Zens and realities and stuff like that. So all the stuff that we've already got that's available right now, that's selling well enough that they're having a hard enough time keeping up with. Now we've got all this other stuff coming out too that they have to get in production. So we'll see what actually happens. This might help them. Getting this stuff announced right now might actually help them kind of gauge things a little bit or manage it a little bit better. I know that some of these, like August 20th is 2 months off, September 17th is 3 months off, so they're announcing stuff really early. But at the same time, it should give them a little bit better idea, a little bit, better head start instead of all of a sudden Zens just sell like crazy and it's like, oh crap, we've got to catch up with these. And then, stuff just kind of keeps getting adjusted and reconfigured and recalculated and whatever else. So RSTX2 should be extremely interesting. I'm really looking forward to that one. But now we can take a look at all the stuff coming out on September 17th. Check the chat. Yeah, that's kind of what my wife said here. That's kind of why I'm doing a live stream. If you have questions about the new stuff, I can give you some of the tech data, and you can, all the stuff that I'm saying right now, you can pretty well find on the website. But if you're not as familiar with the different cover formulas and what the core numbers mean necessarily, and of course if you are interested in an RSTX2 but you didn't have an RSTX1, then you may not have kind of a frame of reference for it. So I'll answer as much as I can. But obviously, I don't want to speculate, because the last thing I want is to say, oh, okay, well, it's going to act like this, and then you end up pre-ordering one or whatever else, and you get it, and it doesn't end up, being there. So I can kind of explain some of the details, most of the details that are on the website, but that's kind of where I'm going to keep it for right now. So we're going to talk about the Hyped Hybrid and the Hyped Pearl next. These are the long-awaited new entries, and we're going to have to wait even longer, in the HP2 line. It was kind of unfortunate because we had the MVP Pearl and the MVP Attitude in the HP2 line, and the way that I understand it, these have been on the drawing board for a while, but all of a sudden, the bowling industry went nuts. Everybody started buying bowling balls like crazy all at the same time. The Zens were really popular. The Reality came out. That's been popular. We've had a bunch of other stuff. The Dark Code's got a ton of pre-orders. All the stuff that we've got right now is really, really crazy popular, and so they had to put the brakes on a bunch of stuff. They had to put a bunch of stuff on the back burner, pun intended. Burner Pearl, burn solid. So, with the Hyped Hybrid and Hyped Pearl, these have a new core, And on here they're saying there's the lowest RG core that they've ever offered in the HP2 line. It comes in at 252 in 15 pounds. The differential is 036. And we're using VTC, just VTC. So it's going to be the same cover stocks that are on the Hustles, but hybrid and pearl, where the two Hustles, the Camo is a solid and the wine is a pearl. And the differential is 036. So again, it's kind of it's kind of in burner territory. I'm going to be really interested to see how these balls differentiate, because the burners were 253, 037 or 038, I believe, and the new hyped in the HP2 line is 252, 036. VTC by itself is strong enough. I think VTC feels a little bit stronger than Reactor that's on like the Electrifies. And so once I get the burner solid and burner pearl, we're going to see exactly how all this stuff compares down at the low end, because the numbers are fairly close between the Hustles, the two hypes, and the burner solid and burner pearl. So it's going to be interesting to see what the differences really are here, if they're more cosmetic, or if there's probably going to be differences in the shape and the roll, because hook potential is not the only thing by a long shot. I pay a whole lot more attention to how a ball shapes than the hook potential. Once I find the shape I like, then I will find that, or use different hook potentials. So these might be fairly similar from a hook potential standpoint, but they might shape fairly differently on the lane. So we're just going to have to wait and see. I don't know what the adjusted VTC is going to look like yet. I don't know what these new cores are going to look like that. So there's a bit of a question mark still on these. But again, these are going to be the Hustles are in the HP1 line. I think they're going to be weaker than the Wrap and the PBR. And then the Hyped, I think, should be in. The MVPs rolled really, really heavy and really early for their numbers. And all these, by the way, have videos up on either Storm's channel, Roto Grip's channel, or 900 Global's channel. Plus, there's been a bunch of stuff from Bowl Expo. There's just a whole bunch of stuff out there to take a look, so you can watch the videos and see how they kind of read to you. I know that I'm gonna watch a little bit more video on them. Watch the videos again, just because I'm pretty interested myself. So the Hype Hybrid and the Hype Pearl are it's just hybrid and pearl versions of the same cover stock. So it's VTC hybrid and pearl on these two. It's got the same the hyped core, so it's going to be they're going to do the same thing like they do with the Hustle core. They're the Hustles. It's the Hustle core. There's no different. So this is going to be the hyped core. So 252, 036. Hustles are 253, 030. So several ticks lower on the differential. And the burners are 253, 037, or 038. So same general ideas, same general thoughts, but they do a pretty good job of staggering the lines. So I would say you have like the Electrifies, and then you have like Hustles, then you have the stuff in the HP2 line, then you have the High Road stuff, and then you have the HP3 line with the Idol series, Rubicons, whatever else, and then you step up into the Master line, which has a bunch of different stuff on the Storm side. And they're kind of throwing stuff with the global side. They're doing a bunch of different things, like the Ordnance C4 has kind of got more like Daredevil numbers. They're kind of throwing some stuff out there and doing some different combinations and some different things. So that's the story for both the Hyped Pearl and Hyped Hybrid. Now we're going to take a look at the Trend 2. I know a lot of people are interested in that one. I myself am very interested in it. They have a very good video that they put up on Storm Bowling's channel that has, it's a fairly long, I don't know, 11, 12, 13 minutes or something like that. where they have Belmo talking to Alex Hoskins and kind of a little behind the scenes of the development process or the ideas when making something like a Trend 2, kind of what they were shooting for. And they keyed in on something very interesting. A lot of it's, they have to think about things from a marketing angle too, but at the same time, there's a specific shape or a specific idea or there's a specific reaction that they're going for with this. Something that Belmo mentioned that was really interesting, he said, okay, so what we've been noticing with Trend is you've seen it on TV, you've seen the Trend all over the place. Frankie shot 300 with it on TV. He said what we're finding with it is that it looks really good from straighter angles, and that's most of where you've seen people using it at. You see, and that's for me, for my wife, for a lot of people that I've seen throw it as well. It's not just an on TV or a pro thing or whatever else. The Trend looks better from straighter angles. Once I started getting a little bit inside, and I think if you go back and watch some of my videos and some of the comparisons and stuff, I think that you can see from me, from Angel, from whatever else, that once I start getting inside of third arrow, it's not a bad look, but the way that he put it is like there's reactions that are better. And so that's something to key in on too. There's a saying that there's no bad balls, there's just bad ball reaction. And it's not, they don't release bad bowling balls anymore. They make some that are a little bit more specific of an intent or a little bit more specific of a purpose. Not everything's going to be like crazy. They've got to make big hook monsters, and those in and of themselves are not going to be versatile because you're looking for hook. You're looking for, when you're out there on something that's soupy and that's wet, you want a bunch of hook. And so naturally, they're not going to be very versatile. They're going to handle heavy oil. Then you look at something that's further down, something like an Electrify Pearl or something. That's going to be more versatile. It's going to be more usable. But once you start getting on medium, heavy conditions, it's just not going to be usable unless you've got several games of transition on the lanes. So what he mentioned in there is they like the continuation on it. But they wanted something that you could move to as you got deeper. That's the Trend type of shape, the Trend type of idea, but that had more continuation, that played more angle better than the Trend does. And so they're looking for that one, kind of that 1-2 punch. And so as you move deeper on the lane, or as when I use the Trend, as I would move, if I needed to move deeper on the lane, I would find myself transitioning into another ball because, again, another ball just did angle better than the Trend did. So what they're looking at with this, and this video really explains it all, they lowered the density of the core, which changed the numbers. They didn't change the shape of it, it's still the piston core, but it's the piston LB core. So and this is again something I was talking about earlier, if you have a strong ball, if you have a strong cover, you have a strong core, whatever else, sometimes it wants to use up too much of that energy too early. So that's what people can see as rollout or something like that. It's not that the ball gets down there and gives up, it's that it's already been using too much energy up front, and so when it gets down, it just doesn't have, when it gets down the lane, it just doesn't have a whole lot left. And so by lowering the density a little bit, they got the RG up to 2.54 from 2.52, I'm pretty sure was where it is. So that naturally makes it want to go a little bit further down the lane. And then with this 041 differential, that's quite a bit lower. I think the Trend was 048, 049, 050, something like that on the differential. So what they do is the core gets you a little bit further down the lane, and then the medium differential still gives you enough flare to be consistent down lane, because something like an IQ Tour that's at 029, that's designed to be really slow and to kind of blend a little bit more. So it's not, the flare rings on the IQ Tour are really close together, so the bow tie on the top and the bottom are really wide, so it's not, you're not getting a whole lot of separation on those flare rings, so you're not getting as much fresh cover exposed to the lane on every rotation. But 040 is kind of in the middle. Again, it's like if you remember the Daredevil line from several years ago, that's about that 040, 041 number. So it flares enough to be consistent and to get you traction, to get you shape, but not so much that it's flaring a bunch and starting to get traction and dig a little bit earlier. So the core gets you a little bit further down the lane, and it's not going to hit friction and stand up because it's not going to have all that flare and all that, you know, torque and whatever else. And so it's going to get down the lane, and then it's going to blend a little bit more, but still be continuous. Now, what they did for the cover stock, this is NRG hybrid that's polished, and this is something that we're familiar with, really familiar with this cover by now. It was on the Physics, NRG hybrid, so it was on the Physics, it was on the Supersonic, and it was on the All-Road. And it's something that's also, if you have a Microtrax ball, so RSTX1 is Microtrax hybrid, which is very similar to NRG. I've had NRG hybrid on several overseas balls as well too, but if you've had either the Physics, RST, Supersonic, All-Road, you kind of know what's going on with this cover. Now, I haven't had a shiny, like a factory shined version of it yet, but this is kind of halfway in between a Physics and an All-Road with these numbers. So it's not quite as high of an RG, it's not quite as high of a differential as a high road, but it's not as early and chewy as something like a Physics that is also asymmetric. So if you go, probably the best explanation for this ball, the Trend 2, is going to be that video that they put out. It's on Storm Bowling's YouTube channel. They put it out a couple days ago. It's pretty in depth, and they show a bunch of the ideas, and they get into the design intent of the bowling ball, and they talk about it in a real world application type of thing. They're targeting a very specific reaction. And so with the Trend, the core's a little bit earlier. It's still continuous, but it's a little bit earlier, a little bit rollier than what it looks like this core is going to be. But the cover is also weaker. It's R2S Pearl on the Trend versus NRG Hybrid on the Trend 2. So when you're moving deeper on the lane, most of the time you're both moving into more oil volume, plus you're increasing the angle. So they couldn't just make this core and put R2S Pearl on it again, or R2S Hybrid even. They needed to make the cover a little bit stronger to kind of, they needed a stronger cover to kind of balance out, making the core a little bit weaker. And so this is going to be, so if anybody that's had an All-Road and shined it up, this is going to be, it's not going to be as long, it's not going to be, with it being shiny too, it's going to be a little bit stronger, a little bit earlier All-Road type idea is how it's reading to me. So a little bit weaker core, a little bit stronger, definitely a fairly stronger cover on the Trend 2 versus the Trend. Yeah. Curious to know what they did exactly to the piston cores. I'm loving the Trend. Again, that video that Storm made is going to be the best information you'll get. That comes right from the people designing the bowling balls. It lets you inside their thought process of what goes on when they're not just pumping out. They're not just doing Mr. Potato Head stuff. They're targeting specific. And this is something else too, is that you can say, oh, marketing, advertising, it's more boom, it's more length, it's more, whatever else, it's more hook, but they're still targeting specific. It does them no good to continue to release the same ball over and over again. They're targeting specific reactions, and sometimes they're targeting nuances within those specific reactions. Sometimes, because exactly what they were saying here is that when Domo goes to move left and you like that kind of shape, you want to keep moving deeper with that kind of shape. If you found a look that already works, something that really sucks is when you start to move around and it doesn't quite look right, and then you have to go to a different ball, which may also be a different shape too, so you might have to kind of work things back in. They're trying to, it's like, okay, the Trend looks great from here, but if we want that similar type of look or that same type of roll, but we just want it to work a little bit better from deeper angles, that's what they designed the Trend 2 specifically for. So, the best thing to do is to go watch that video. And again, they have videos for all these that I've been talking about. they have videos for every single one of them. So you can go take a look and see what your eyes are telling you. So you can go watch. So I'm not sure what the difference is going to be on the lane versus the burner solid, the hustles, the electrify solid, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, and the hyped pearl and hyped hybrid. The numbers are close enough that it could kind of muddle things, but I haven't thrown them yet, so I'm not entirely sure what they're going to look like, but you can go look at the videos and you can see what the difference is to you visually. So, we are going to talk about the Electrify Solid now. This one got pushed back. Originally it was supposed to come out here pretty soon, but they pushed it quite a ways back because of the influx of all this other stuff. And so we had the Electrify Pearl and the Electrify Hybrid. This is just the solid version. It's reactor, so it's the same cover formula. It's got the same, let me see, what is this? The circuit core. 251,030. So these are very, very close to IQ numbers. The IQ is 249,029. So we're thinking weaker IQ torque here, basically. And that's what the Electrify Pearl was. It was a weaker IQ emerald. The Electrify Hybrid, weaker IQ torque fusion. So this should be very similar idea to the IQ Tour Solid, but just weaker. They also have, this also comes factory polished, so it might be in Hustle Ink territory. I think that's the biggest thing that everybody wants to know. I do have an ink that I'm going to get games on. I will compare the ink to the Electrify Solid in my review, just to see exactly how those match up. But at the same time, you're going to want to look at the Hustle Camo too, because it has the same exact core as the ink, same factory shine cover finish, but we'll have to see exactly how close the formulas are to one another. So I'm also going to have the ink compared to the Hustle Camo too, because the Camo might actually be closer to replacing the ink than the Electrify Solid is. But if you like the Electrify Pearl or the Electrify Hybrid or both, it's going to be a similar idea. They're still going to be shiny here, but the solid version within the same formula. You can generally pay attention to Pearl Solid Hybrid. Once you're in a different formula, that all goes out the window. But within being all the same formula, this one should be earlier and smoother than the Pearl Hybrid. Now the other one we had to talk about is cool. It's the Honey Badger yellow poly here. And like I said, we thought this was going to be an overseas ball. So we found one and we went ahead and nabbed it. But these are going to be stateside. And so if you're in the market for a new spare ball, the mix off-white looks really cool in person. It looks like they took the quantum bias and shined it up, so it's a very cool look on that. And the logos are kind of like a slate gray or like a grayish black, so that looks really cool. But if you're in the market for a clear poly, these are really crazy cool.
I actually
Like
think, not the Badger paw, but the other side, I think the logo's different on the stateside one.
Oh yeah?
I think it says worldwide.
I don't know.
Pull it
That's
up
a
on the website.
performance for your game. I don't know why they change them.
I don't know, but I just noticed that when you turn it around, I think the one that's on the website's different.
Might say striking worldwide. We might have a special one. I don't know, but it's got the black one. I don't see the. There it is. Yep, global striking worldwide. Honey Badger yellow poly. And yeah, the whole logo's black on it here. So yeah, the logo looks a little bit different. Interesting.
Oh, you want to do website?
Interesting.
Which website?
So, I think that's going to do it for our kind of forecast and outlook. Once again, like somebody doing the weather, I'm not going to know exactly what these balls are going to be about. I haven't thrown them yet. I am just kind of breaking down for you how the the literature, the information reads on the website. Some of this stuff were like the RSTX2, don't exactly know what this eTrax Pearl Plus cover is going to be about. We know quite a bit about eTrax, or eTrax Pearl, but we don't know what that's going to be about. Don't quite know exactly what this, what the piston LD core is going to do in the Trend 2, but very familiar with NRG hybrid. So for anybody that like their, like their physics, or I've got some overseas stuff with NRG hybrid on it too, but really, if you're, like NRG stuff, NRG Pearl is also on the IQ Tornado Pearl, so it's the Pearl version of NRG rather than the hybrid, which is on Trend 2. But we'll have to see what that's all about. I do like the difference between mixing and matching, and we've seen it with the high road line. We've seen it with high road. If you take a high road Pearl, a high road, an all road, and a high road max out, very interesting to say the least. But they take a look that you're somewhat familiar with and is going to be somewhat familiar from ball to ball, and they tweak the reaction with the cover stocks. In this case, they're looking for a specific reaction. They have tweaked both the core and the cover stock for the Trend 2 to kind of fit the idea of what they're going for. Once again, the release dates for all of these, the Dark Code and the Ufo Alert, are coming out next week. I believe it's on Friday. Yeah, it's next Friday for the Dark Code, Ufo Alert, Mix Off White, Tropical Surge Purple, Tropical Surge Gold Black, and the Burner Solid and the Burner Pearl, if you're interested in any of those. A couple weeks later, the Hustle Camo and the Hustle Wine come out on July 23rd. The Zen Master and RSTX2 come out on August 20th. And Hyped Pearl, Hyped Hybrid, Trend 2 Electrify Solid, and Honey Badger Yellow Poly come out on September 17th. Those are the dates as of right now, depending on how much popularity, how much demand there is for this stuff. The Dark Code and the UFO Alert, they had to push back because they got so many Dark Code orders. I imagine with all this other stuff being announced, the Zen Master, people are going to be crazy about because it's another Zen. The RSTX2 is just the coolest looking ball that's ever, so that's going to get a lot of attention, especially because of how good the RST is. A lot of people look at it and like, oh, it's kind of green and black. It doesn't really stand on the shelf, but it's one of the better ones we have in the catalog, period, right now. And of course, there's a lot of demand there's a lot of people wanting another HP2 ball, so we've got the Hyped Pearl and the Hyped Hybrid. Anybody that like the afterburners are going to want burners. Anybody that like the Hustle Link is going to be after, or if you like the Hustle line in general, you're going to be after those two. So those are the dates as of right now. But that's all I've got for this. I will probably do this in smaller fashion next time new balls come out. But there's so much to talk about. That's why this ended up going fairly long. But there's just a bunch to talk about. So next time they announce like one or two balls, it should be a little bit more bite-sized. So if you're watching after the fact. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. So if you are watching after the fact, we don't need to blather on about a whole lot more. We're going to have Rise and Grinds tomorrow again at 10 a.m. Don't know what the topic is yet, but we'll figure it out. So, thanks everybody. Ask questions in the comments later. If you have any questions, there's plenty of literature on the website. There's a bunch of information on the website. They have videos out for them, all this stuff. So if you want to see ball reaction and compare them visually and see what you think about the reaction compared to that can also help you maybe learn something about the tech side of stuff too. So thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it, and we will see you tomorrow morning.